I think the system is much safer and much sounder. As I mentioned, we're doing a lot more to try to look for financial stability risks that may not be immediately apparent. Would I say there will never, ever be another financial crisis? You know, probably that would be going too far, but I do think we're much safer, and I hope that it will not be in our lifetimes.
Janet Yellen, Federal Reserve Chairman, says she expects no new financial crisis in our lifetimes. Interesting comment there. We're back with former Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan. All 34 of the nation's biggest banks passed the stress test this past week. First time that's happened, Dr. Greenspan, in 7 years. Is it too optimistic, though, to say that there won't be another crisis in our lifetime?
When I was Fed Chairman for a very long number of years, my predecessor, Paul Volcker, never commented on what I had been doing or what I've been saying, and I've tried to invoke a similar characterization of my remarks such that I go to the sidelines. I know Janet obviously very well. We work together. She's a first-rate economist, but I still am not going to break what I would call my version of the Volcker rule.
Yeah, you don't want to talk about what your predecessor said. I totally understand. Your successor, rather, said. Let me ask you about those stress tests and the regulatory environment right now, Dr. Greenspan, particularly as the president has been rolling back regulations throughout the financial services sector, trying to redo new versions of Dodd-Frank. What's your take on what we're seeing out of this administration in terms of rolling back the regulations and their impact?
Well, I judge the fact that that's what the markets think is the reason why the markets have risen since the election. That is, risk premiums have declined, and there's a very heavy overhang of Dodd-Frank that sits on the markets. And I think that that has been lifted somewhat by the expectation that there will be significant deregulation. If that happens, and I think it very likely will, that has a very positive effect on asset expansion and asset price expansion. And as a consequence of that, I think that the outlook is good in that particular area, if not very much anywhere else.
So in terms of the behavior of the banks, if they've got these regulations lifted, you would think that they would perhaps have more wiggle room to invest. Maybe more wiggle room to invest in CapEx, more wiggle room to hire. Do you see a loosening of this as a result of that?
Well, I'm on the record for arguing that the actual level of reserves against assets, in other words, the amount of equity in a bank or a financial intermediary, that ratio should be much higher than we currently hold. For example, commercial banks now have a little over 10% equity to assets. I think the figure ought to be 30%.
Dr. Greenspan, good to see you, sir. Thanks so much.
My pleasure.